looking into everything. Let me get this back screen ready. I told y'all I was going to try to put up a little something for y'all. Okay, so hopefully y'all can see the screen a little bit better when I'm going ahead and showing y'all the receipts. Because listen, today, oh, we getting into them receipts. Oh, we getting into these receipts. I literally wasn't even planning. I'm talking about tariffs today. I really wasn't in the mood for that. But I seen a news clip. And I decided that something really important today would be just to collect the receipts, show y'all the receipts, and let people come to their own conclusions, right? But we definitely mapping some very interesting developments relevant to tariffs, okay? So I put myself some notes here because y'all know otherwise I have us on bing, bop, bam, right? I literally would do that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to summarize anything. I'm just going to really just show y'all the receipts. And there are quite a few that are here. There is a clip that is available. These are all the little receipts I got. Don't show too much now. Don't show too much. We're going to go to what prompted all of this, right? Because y'all know I've been covering what's been happening in Canada. Because some of the events of what was happening in Canada with regards to wildfires was drifting over into Michigan. I am a Michigan resident, so that was something that was of concern, right? Something that affects what me personally, affects people I care about. I have family members in Canada, so I was concerned about them as well. And I was very interested in what are we going to do to address the things that are currently going on. What I didn't expect when I was trying to dig deeper, when I was trying to look for information, was to hear some of the rhetoric around the discussion that I was hearing. So once again, y'all know me, that gave me pause. That made me want to ask some questions, some very salient questions, some interesting questions, because why were we not getting enough information about what's been going on? Even now when I'm actively looking for things, I feel like I don't find the kind of information I want to find. Luckily, social media is what social media is nowadays, and I'm able to scour and find certain kinds of information, but it's just not like readily accessible, and that bothers me. So I said, let me go ahead and put this together, and I'm gonna just share it with people and let people be able to come to their own conclusions. But I also want to make sure what we timestamping some of these, what we pulling these receipts and putting them together so we can see it. Sometimes when you have information sitting scattered, you can't really make sense of the information that's being provided. What? Because it's not cohesively put together. But when we start to map things and say, okay, are there any governance documents that we can find that suggest some of these activities were, let's say, discussed previously? Are there any current actions, executive actions, memorandums, things of that nature that are being put forth? Are there certain actions that we can see? Is there a certain kind of dialogue? Is there a certain kind of posture? So, child, I was all in these receipts looking for them. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm not going to tell you how to interpret the information. I'm going to leave that for you to decide. You decide how you want to interpret the information. You decide how you see it, right? Whether you make the connections to it or not, or maybe you make some other connections. And child, if you make more connections, you put it in the chat. Put it in the chat, because I'm really trying to dive in. I'm open to all levels of interpretation here, because at this point, we just gathering information. But I saw so many patterns, I said, let me go ahead and show my people. So what prompted all this, once again, I would say last week, I started looking into what was happening in Canada with the wildfires, right? It impacted me directly. It impacted people I care about. It impacted our neighbors. Michigan, I consider to be like a bordering state, if you will, because we're right next to what? Canada. A lot of people, when you're from Michigan, especially Detroit area, all of us have a story about how we somehow ended up being in Canada and we were not trying to be on that side, and how a lot of times they're really nice and like, yeah, we see you messed up. Go ahead, turn back around. Okay, from my perspective, I'm talking about taking the tunnel, not the bridge. I will talk a little bit about the bridge in one of the videos here, but you will see I came with the receipts, right? I'm really giving this as well-rounded as of a perspective as I can be. I'm not trying to be leaning in one direction or the other. So you'll see that I did my best to pull as many receipts as possible. All right. All right, so I see people in the chat. Hello, welcome to the live. Hopefully you're enjoying where we're at thus far, but I'm just trying to set the foundation so you kind of know what we're talking about and what prompted me to start doing all this digging, because you're about to see, or more so even here. I want you to hear the live clip, so you ain't saying I'm misspeaking or pulling stuff out of context. You about to hear it for yourself. You ready? This is the clip that I found relevant to the discussion of tariffs. Very recent discussion. Okay? So here we go.
There's this nasty parasite that is giving people in 9 states explosive diarrhea.
My apologies. I'm getting this too early. Here we go.
There's this nasty parasite that is giving people in 9 states explosive diarrhea. When is it going to be safe to eat lettuce again?
I don't know, I haven't thought about it. It's the first time I've been asked that question. Are you eating lettuce recently?
I should always have more lettuce.
Just to clarify, this is from the White House on July 24th. July 24th, I pulled this directly from CNN, a very credible, viable resource, right? I pulled it directly off of what? I pulled it off at TikTok. So once again, he's asking about the lettuce, okay? And this is how this discussion is coming about from lettuce, okay?
No, it's a very interesting question from you. I didn't think you'd ask that kind of a question. Nobody wants to ask that question, but
it's exciting. There's this food coming in, I guess, from Mexico. It's tainted. It's making a lot of people sick. That is the CDC's terminology.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to put a major tariff on Mexico because of the lettuce, and we're going to put a big tariff on Canada because of the smoke. All right? We'll get a combo. Which would you have, the lettuce or the smoke? I think I'll take the smoke.
Okay. There's this nasty parasite that is giving people in 9 states explosive diarrhea. When is it going to be safe to eat lettuce again?
I don't know, I haven't thought about it. It's the first time I've been asked that question. Are you eating lettuce recently?
I should always have more lettuce.
No, it's a very interesting question from you. I didn't think you'd ask that kind of a question. Nobody wants to ask that question, but it's exciting.
There's this food coming in, I guess, from Mexico. It's tainted. It's making a lot of people sick. That is the CDC's terminology.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to put a major tariff on Mexico because of the lettuce, and we're going to put a big tariff on Canada because of the smoke. All right? We'll get a combo. Which would you have, the lettuce or the smoke? I think I'll take the smoke.
Okay, so keep in mind, the smoke is something that very adversely affects a lot of people. And his initial response is, hey, we're going to give them a tariff for the smoke and potentially give out tariffs for lettuce. I said, that's a very peculiar thing to say. It seemed like the action seems a little obtuse. You know, it seemed a little grand to me to say, hey, you know what, you got some smoke going on, I'm going to just put some tariffs. Tariffs is it's not necessarily a negative term, right? But it's a very serious term. That's a specific kind of action, right? A lot of regulations and things that are involved in that. So to say, hey, because of that smoke, we're going to give you a tariff. And because we feel like there's something going on with the lettuce, we're going to go ahead and give you a tariff. I read some places that people said, oh, we think that he's joking. Some people said not so much. So then it made me think, let's go dig. Is there anything to suggest that there's maybe been some actions related to tariffs? Now, we know that there have already been some discussions throughout the year about tariffs, but I want to look into a little bit more specific. He said Canada specifically, right? And he's also making some references to Mexico. So I just want to dig in a little bit deeper, see if there's anything recently related to tariffs before he made this statement. So let's go look for that. Matter of fact, let me just show you quickly what I found on CBS.
Take us here. This is getting a little scary. Holy.
Canada.
This could potentially overtake us here. This is getting a little scary. Holy.
Okay, yeah, this is.
Okay, y'all need to hurry up here. Like, seriously, we're encased in flames now.
You guys gotta go backwards. Go.
Okay, so that's very serious, right? That's not something I would consider to be like a joking matter. You can see they're literally encased in flames. There's some other content that I have that I can show relevant to some of the responses that were happening locally in Canada with regards to those fires. Matter of fact, this was another response that he made.
I have a good relationship with Mark Carney, but you know we got to stop the fires up there. If we can help them, we'll help them. But maybe they should pay us some damages or something, or we should do some tariffs.
U.S. President Trump says Canadian wildfires have, quote, poisoned U.S. air and told reporters last night that something needs to be done. He's threatened to top up the import tariffs he's already levied on Canadian goods in response, and says he plans to speak with Prime Minister Mark Carney about the situation.
Okay, so this is Canada TV. So this is a Canadian news source. What I found interesting was this is a clip I pulled on the 20th of July, right? So at the time, he's like, I don't know, maybe some compensation, maybe some tariffs. Now he's sitting in a press conference talking about tariffs. I see something in the chat that what's happening, that's scary. I agree. I too am wondering what is really going on and what is happening. I'm talking about the Canadian wildfires, and then additionally some other statements that he made. The executive, the president of the United States, made relevant to tariffs because it's been just very interesting. And I said, let me show y'all some of the receipts. And I'm going to show y'all some of the documents and memorandums and things I found as well, just to line it all up so it all makes sense. Because sometimes when we just say, oh, somebody said tariffs, we kind of just say, oh, whatever. But when somebody goes and pulls these receipts and we see, oh, there's some actual document that's lining up with some of this. And sometimes there are even some, let's say some guiding documents, right? That also appear to be in the midst. Now that's a different conversation. So we just collected receipts right now, right? Okay. So once again, we saw the Canadian wildfire. We saw that somebody was encased in fire. We saw this like emergency responder. It looked like they was insulated in something that was protective, right? But they were encapsulated. We were able to see around that time there was a response provided by the executive of the United States, right? We were able to see a couple days pass, and now there was a press conference that was kind of happening here. And they're talking about tariffs. Now, there's also some discussion relevant to the Canadian bridge and some things are supposed to be happening with regards to like funding and money. I'm going to show you that as well. But before I jump into that, I just wanted to show. Let me pull this into sequence. There was, where is the first piece of that? Did it not load? Okay. So I might have to upload the second piece right as I am talking to y'all. Okay, no, here it is. Okay. So if you look at this title, and you can look it up yourself right there on the White House correspondence page, right? Gotta work on my angles. Work on these angles. Okay, so this is a presidential what action? As you can see, action by the United States in the investigation under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 of the Act's policies and practices of 60 economies related to the failure of each economy to impose and effectively enforce a prohibition on the importation of goods produced, right, with forced labor. 60 economies. So that sounds like 60 countries. So then I said, okay, let's dig a little deeper. So when I went to go look a little bit deeper, like what are some of these countries, right? I'm trying to get these angles right for y'all. Okay. So there are 60. I'm just going to read a couple of these. Algeria, Angola, Argentina, Australia, the Bahamas, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Brazil, Cambodia, Canada, Chile, China, People's Republic of China. So Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, European Union, Guatemala, Guyana, Honduras, Hong Kong, China, India, Indonesia, Iraq, and more. Right? There's very specific discussion. And if you want, maybe we can kind of chop into that. I do have my computer up, so we can get into that receipt and read some of that. But that's a lot of tariffs. They didn't say that it's effective at this moment, but they definitely have some things put in place to get that going. There are some standards for which it seems like people are meeting certain criteria relevant to the tariffs, but that's quite a few provisions that are being put in place. Notice that number 10 is Canada. I'm going to go look. I believe Mexico is on here as well. I'm going to go back and look at my list. But, oh, yeah. A lot of the places that we have conflict with or reported to have conflict with, their names just so happen to fall on this list. Those names also so happen to be listed in Project 24 as priority threats. Just going to put that out there as well. And, yes, we do have a Project 25 alignment that I'm going to show later. Once again, I'm just showing the receipts that I'm finding, different things I'm mapping. We'll see how well they map later. But these are just things that, once again, I am seeing. So I'm connecting and showing y'all real time. Because y'all told me when I first started this channel, that's the kind of content y'all like. So I said, let me show it to y'all while I'm doing it. Is that not a receipt? Let's dig more. Let's dig a little bit more. Because we getting into these receipts. There's a whole nother piece about the critical mineral part. So don't let me close this thing without talking about that. So out of curiosity, with all of this going on, I had questions. I had questions about what might be guiding some of this conversation. This is some heavy loaded conversation about tariffs, right? And it just made me want to kind of go in and look out of curiosity. When I have questions, I'm like, I don't see why the conversation is going that way. The first thing I want to look at is, can we find some guiding documents? Can we find any governing type of things, any documentation that might make some of this make sense so we can dive into? So I looked at Project 25. And when I looked at Project 25, and I put tariffs in there. If you want to go on the channel, I have a digital version. I believe it's called a static version, directly provided by Heritage Foundation. There's a link to that on the channel. You can go look it up yourself. There are 100. Let me see if we can find the other one. Does it show at the bottom? It's not showing. Okay, loading more. 100 matches found. Y'all want to see that with your own lovely eyes? 100 matches found. When I went in Project 25, right? When I went into Project 25, there were 100 matches found relevant to the discussion of tariffs. Am I going to show you a page? Yes, I am. I'm glad you asked. So we're talking about retaliatory tariffs. There's discussion about, and also I want to put in fairness, right? I'm not going to say that the whole entirety of 100 of the references to tariffs indicates that tariffs are a positive thing. Actually, what I found is that there are quite a few instances where they were suggesting that tariffs are not necessarily a positive thing in the body of this text. So once again, I said I'm not biased. I'm not going to present it the wrong kind of way. However, there are some things that are being discussed that also sit in support of and provide some guidance on how to move about doing certain things, which I want to show. So let me show y'all that. Hopefully, if you looked on the side, you saw that there was with the page numbers that sits in the corner. So if you decide to go look at Project 25, you can see exactly where that's listed and where that is written. Okay. Just so you can see again. They said removing tariffs that benefited special interests. You have reference to China tariffs and how they cost the average household. They talked about retaliatory tariffs. They talked about a lot of different things, right? So China came up substantially in that section. They talked about while the Constitution banned internal tariffs in the U.S., right? So that's why I'm saying I wanted to make reference that they did put some things that sound like it wasn't always a positive push for. But there's some other things that were being outlined. Definitely want y'all to look into that on your own. Because like I said, I'm not going to summarize, which means I've come to my own conclusion as to what the information means. I'm just trying to make sure that I keep bringing these receipts to you so that you might see them. Okay? Also, just so y'all can see that once again, y'all can see it says wow, which somewhat puts some foundation down for while this might be state blah 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 may be the case, right? You gonna read some of that on your own, or I'll read some of it on this channel. Y'all can listen to it, but we're gonna make sure we verify that before we move otherwise, right? But it just made me ask some questions, right? It really made me think to ask some questions that we can find some mapping, because we're talking about uphold the principle of reciprocity. That's what this is saying. This wants to uphold the principle of reciprocity. The U.S. raising its tariffs to mirror levels that they feel exist in other places. And they talked about some specific strategies. I'm going to zoom us in on that page. So on page 835 in Project 25, there are two things that are being listed. Right? It outlines how to go about doing certain things. Right? How the current administration, this is the recommendation, right, should go about doing certain things. Those certain things being what? Tariffs. And then it starts to talk about strengthening American manufacturing. I want y'all to see that as well. Right? Strengthening American manufacturing. I'm going to go ahead and verbally go ahead and pull some information about that page just so we can have that as a point of conversation, just so I can share that piece with you and pull it up on my computer real quick. Because I think it's also interesting to note on the same page where they're talking about tariffs and what the upcoming administration should do, which is, it said the conservative administration, which is the current administration should be doing. It also states right underneath, strengthening the American manufacturing, right? So right as we are in a season where all of these tariffs are being put into place, so the foundation for these tariffs to be put in place, on this same, let's say, recommendation document, it says strengthening American manufacturing, right? So we just saw some of this stuff is happening in real time, right? Because that tariff documentation, that memorandum, that was July 20th. Today is what, the 26th? Okay, well, guess what's happening in Michigan right now? Earlier this morning, the executive was on his way to Michigan. You want to know what he was here for? Let me show you. They have a release that came out. Yay! You want to see what's going on with this release? Let me show you. So in the release, it says, made in Michigan again. President Trump's trade agenda is supercharging American auto manufacturing. The White House, July 27, 2006. President Donald Trump returns to Michigan today to visit the General Motors proving grounds in Milford and celebrate the roaring comeback of American auto manufacturing under his leadership. Since taking office, President Trump has ignited an automotive renaissance, honoring production, restoring factory jobs, and making vehicles in Michigan again. What did we see at the bottom of the Project 25 page? What did we see? Because like you see, I took this at 2:22 today. Right now it's 3:37. Okay, at least in Eastern Standard Time. Okay, we're gonna pop right back to this page on page 802. 802 in the official is the official page, but then reference, if you have the digital, is gonna be page 835. At the very bottom, it says strengthening American manufacturing. It says the decline of American manufacturing is a common political trope in both parties, typically involved before a call for more government intervention. This narrative has several problems. One is that, and then it proceeds to go on. We see that, right? We see that that's present. We see that that's present, right? Okay, so now we have some mapping. We, in fact, have some mapping. We, in fact, have some mapping, right? Because it goes into a little bit more detail, and it states, record investment, record sales, American jobs. Michigan is looking in tens of thousands, or better yet, my apologies. Michigan is locking in tens of billions in new capital and thousands of high-paying jobs as companies respond to President Trump's America First policies. General Motors is investing $6 billion in U.S. manufacturing, including a major expansion on its Orion Township assembly plant, with plans to continue onshoring significant production. GM is also adding an overtime shift at its Flint plant amid a surge in pickup truck demand. Ford Motor Company is investing $3 billion into its Blue Oval battery pack in Marshall, creating 1,700 new jobs. The company is also adding a third shift at its Dearborn truck plant as the F-150 continues to dominate global pickup truck. This was collected at 2:22 today. With regards to a release that was made today on the White House government page. I mean, when we talk about mapping, like, I just lined it up. You can't tell me I didn't line it up. Can't say I didn't come with these receipts. Okay, so just one other piece. There was also some other things with regards to I wanted to show y'all the securing America's defense supply chain and ensuring domestic acquisition of critical minerals. This was also on July 20th, right? People forget that critical minerals are required for a lot of the things that we use, like electronic cars, something like, I don't know, the TV or your telephone that you're possibly watching this live stream on, right? Your phones, your mobile devices, weaponry requires a lot of those critical minerals. All right, so that was on July. It speaks to the United States military is the most effective and powerful fighting force on the planet. It feels the most, let's see, can you see that? It builds the most advanced weapons system and technologies in the world, utilizing cutting-edge equipment to dominate the modern battlefield. To continue the dominance in the era of renewed great power competition, the United States must secure its supply chain against physical, cyber, and economic subversion. It is the policy of the United States to not only the finished equipment deployed by our military, but also the critical minerals and components necessary to manufacture, maintain, sustain, and repair that equipment are sourced domestically or from allied nations. Despite the longstanding prohibition on the use of sensitive materials sourced from geopolitical adversaries, defense contractors have historically under-prioritized domestic production and resilience. Biden administration will act to ensure that the statutory requirements, and it lists out a specific code there, are strictly observed and result in resilient domestic and allied supply chain. All right. Once again, I'm connecting those receipts for you. I also wanted to show you just something else that was happening with regards to Canada, because there seems to be some things that were happening in the discussions and negotiations, and I just wanted to show you that to y'all as well. Because what I told y'all, we finna get into these receipts. I'm gonna show y'all what I got. Because this was kind of more so centered around the discussion, relationship, and dialogue between the U.S. and Canada with regards to some of the statements and posturing. So I wanted to show y'all this as well.
Canada just opened an international bridge to the United States. They didn't invite the Americans. Here's why. First, take a look at what it's like to stand on the Gordie Howe Bridge connecting Windsor to Detroit. This is the opening ceremony, supposed to happen a month ago, but Canada and the United States put that on pause to work out underlying issues. Those issues have to do with how the toll revenue from this bridge is divvied up. Canada, under the initial agreement, collects all of the tolls to pay down the $6.4 billion price tag it covered to build the bridge. After that, tolls are split 50-50 with the state of Michigan. Now there's a new agreement, and it says for the next 15 years, Canada will split the revenue from the tolls 50-50 with the United States so that it can go to an American investment fund that will work on projects along the supply chain corridor in Michigan. After that is done, those 15 years, it reverts back to the original initial agreement. However, this week, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened more tariffs on Canada, leading Canadian officials to tell American politicians they were not invited to today's opening ceremony. You're looking at the first transport truck to cross Canada Customs on the bridge. It represents $300 billion in trade that moves along this corridor every single year. Vehicle traffic can start crossing on the bridge Monday, and then people will be able to bike and walk across the bridge August 5th.
Okay. So we seeing how this tariff conversation is starting to map and affect things, right? I'm always saying you got to be careful when you're handling your negotiations and your conversations, the posture, right? The posture. The U.S. would have at least been invited to the opening because, mind you, from my understanding, the U.S. did not help with the creation as much with that particular bridge. That specific one, right? We do have the ambassadors. This is different. So then they said, oh, are we supposed to be potentially considering some other document or some other form of an agreement, you're talking about putting tariffs on us publicly, right? And then there are documents where you can see that that foundation is already being put down for the tariffs. We saw that dated what? July 20th. So a lot of these receipts are what? Recent. I told y'all I like to map live with y'all, see how y'all feel about this. Sometimes I like to do it as like a whole little presentation and whatnot. Other times I just kind of want to share my thoughts. Today was really important to me just to show you the receipts. It was really important for me to show you the receipts. Let me see if I have my picture of my tracker. I might not have it on here. I try not to throw too much up here at a time. Also, just want to note that there are wildfires that are happening everywhere right now. I won't say everywhere because that sounds too inclusive, but there are lots of wildfires that are happening all over. And we don't necessarily see other people taking this kind of posture when an ally or a neighbor, better yet, right? I would like to say ally, right? But like when your neighbor got a fire going on to be acting like that. This was on BBC News, right? Europe wildfires. More than 300,000 flee wildfires in France and Spain. I just want to put that up there, right? That was earlier this morning. Child told y'all I'd be happy to be up all times of the day to pull some of this stuff for y'all. So this was 7:30. 7:30 in the morning. I pulled that up, right? There are wildfires happening all over. And other people didn't take that posture when their neighbors were having problems. What did they do? They just went to go help them. They just went to go help them. And they said, oh, if you need some help, I don't know, you might have to compensate us. Then you follow up a few days later and say, you know what? I'm going to need you to run that money. Go ahead and send me some money. Matter of fact, we also going to renegotiate some of these contracts that was sitting out there. Oh, what? What is going on? That, to me, that is wild work. That is wild. As an American, it very much disappointed me to see that response. That is wild. And the odd thing is, right, when you think about just merely the introduction of me providing some of this information, right, the smoke choked me out last week. I didn't know it was coming. My neighbors, right, will just say, Canadians, they were experiencing something. And because we are neighbors, it came over to where we were. It has since moved to, multiple, states. But you got to think, when your neighbor's in distress, you help them out. One, because it's just a good human thing, right? Two, if you don't help them put the fire out where they are, it's going to come to you. Because why are you their neighbor? So to say, hey, I want some compensation, doesn't even seem like a good strategy approach or just a way to handle people. It just doesn't sound good at all. I noticed something in the chat, and I'm going to read this message. Oh, you said you love the content. Thank you so much. I'm so excited that you love this content. Then you're the person that I made this content for. I love just sharing. I really appreciate when I see feedback and comments like that. It really warms my heart because I really just love to share. I believe that it's so important for us to be informed, and you really don't get the opportunity to make a fair decision if you're not informed. Sometimes the information isn't always as easily accessible, so I just try to compile it and share, and I leave it to you. What you want to do with that information is up to you. But when it comes time for you to make decisions, because there will come a time where we all have to make some type of decision, at least you can feel informed and be comfortable in decisions that you did make because you were informed when you made them. And I'm glad I remind you of a teacher. Oh, that's so awesome. Some of my favorite people were teachers I had when I was younger. And I'm so glad that someone experienced my content and felt connected. Hopefully you subscribe and you like the channel. I definitely look forward to you coming back and staying. As a matter of fact, I got a little bit more info if you want to stay here. Just as a point of information, right? Because we saw Trump's response, right? Just in fairness, I want to provide something that as far as the Canadian response, right? I'm going to provide just a little bit of that because I think that's significant as well to have some understanding about how they responded. Because even though they felt offended, you can tell in the response by what was said, they handled it so respectfully and nice and said, you know what, and if you guys were in distress, we would help you out. And they said, and historically, we used to help you out. But don't let me summarize it too much. I told you I won't summarize. I'm going to go ahead and give you that receipt. Here we go.
I find it a shame the administration in the U.S. and Congress people writing these letters and blaming us and so on and so forth. They have a very short memory. We had the water bombers, everyone ready, going over to California. It was last year. We sent down hydro linemen down to the Carolinas and Georgia to help out. That's what neighbors do, right? You don't get on and start threatening and criticizing because guess what? One day it's going to be your turn. And we're going to be down there without hesitation to support our neighbors, which we should be. But all the rhetoric going on there, and it's not from all Americans. I'll tell you, Americans love Canadians.
That's right.
We Canadians love Americans. But to make the comments they did through the administration, unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
Okay, so that was CBC News, right? So just to put that into perspective, and one second. Okay, so here is something I found just to give y'all a point of reference. When you talk about your neighbors, you try to be kind, right? You try to be considerate of what they are experiencing and what all happened, right? So I'm gonna just kind of work it in sequence here. The chief said wildfires completely destroyed the First Nation. I'm gonna just show you some information really, really quick. Okay. I'm going to show you another piece right here. This is something, now, once again, the clip I just showed you was what was available like late last week. This is a receipt that I was able to pull about efforts that had been made back in like November.
We're trapped.
My apologies, May 30th, 2025.
As counselors,
Original
we take
post.
the calls from our people, from the mothers, from the grandmothers, from the men, from the women, the elderly that are trapped, sitting there waiting to be rescued. And the lines of communication are broken. What answers do we give our people? We're here. We're trying. We will get you out. Now, Canada, don't wait until we start losing lives. Like Grand Chief spoke, do better. We matter. Our people matter. The call went out days ago while we had an airstrip. We asked, we pleaded, it fell on deaf ears to come and get our people out. And then the weather changed. You know, the fire came towards our airport. It took it out of commission. Prior to that, our tracks, our main rail, like our main mode of transportation into our community was already compromised. There was no way we could have bought supplies in. You know, and then it went back to our airline, the wind shifted, it took that out. So now we're asking, we appreciate all the efforts that are coming in right now with the helicopters, but like Grand Chiefs have spoken, we need more.
They said that as far as going by air and by train, those two pathways, they said, were not really available as far as back in May of 2025. So when they had another wildfire, right? How are they supposed to respond to that? How are they supposed to address it? It's not that they want to address it. They're stating that the resources are not as accessible. They're not as available. So if someone says, hey, I don't really have the resources to address this distressing thing that's happened in my home, right? Or in my community, and you're my neighbor or you're my ally, because typically Canada would be considered allied to the United States in most situations, you would help them. When you my neighbor, what do? I look out for you because we neighbors. When you're my ally, what do? I look out for you and I stay at your six. I got your back because what you my ally. And if I need something, you the first person I'm supposed to be able to lean on. So when you a neighbor and an ally, which is usually how you want to say it, you don't want your neighbor being an enemy, right? You look out. What happened? They said on here, we just saw, when the U.S. needed something, they said, you didn't even have to ask. Boom, we on the way. I got your back. Something happened up there, we sending somebody. Something happened up there, we sending somebody. You didn't even have to ask. We see the distress. Matter of fact, the distress is getting to a point where it has seeped into not just our backyard, but it's in our house. People smoking, right? I literally walked outside. It was films of smoke. I can show y'all images of that. Oh, we need some compensation. We might be able to help. We might not. Excuse me? That's a wild way to respond. Another thing I want to know is the specific geographical area that was being described, right? It said one nation, right? My part, apologies, not one nation. It's the First Nation. Look at that level of devastation. This was from July 15th. July 15th. Okay. That particular area, I was very curious what was all going on there, because I'm be honest. But although it was a very barbecue smell, there was also sometimes like an undertone of some other kind of smell. I'm like, what is burning? In my mind, I'm like, that can't just be trees. Now, granted, a lot of things got burned. You know, you're talking about houses, cars, so that could be some of the things that I smelt, mineralized, if you will. But it made me get to digging, and y'all know how I get. So I went to go look up this. I found from Ontario, Canada, right? It said the mineral exploration. This is a document that they have. You can go look it up and verify it for yourself. But if you look, if you will, and we almost done here from my receipts for the day, right? We see that there is quite a bit of world-class, let's say the world-class mining jurisdiction, and among those they have minerals, right? Some very specific minerals. In 2025, gold was the most sought after mineral in Ontario, with exploration spending of $807 million, totaling 75% of the province's total exploration spending. That is what it says right here. So we see gold mineral, and that's that percentage right there. Then you have base minerals. Then you have other critical minerals like, had to pull myself back because I can't see. Okay, from this angle. So PGEs, lithium. Once we were just talking about that, right? One of the critical minerals, cobalt. Then they have other non-critical minerals like silver, iron, diamonds. Right. When they talked about the base metals, that includes like copper, nickel, zinc. But y'all, let me get a little bit further into this receipt. Because I got the second part of that document. Hold on. Hold on to your love. You got to hold on. Okay, you ready? And don't mind my little vocal stems. Okay, so right here, look, 75% gold. Okay, well positioned to be a global supplier of critical minerals with our vast supply of minerals, processing capabilities, and world-class mining supply and service sector. 75% gold. Made me think of gold member. Me like gold. Right here, you have the base mineral, about 21%. You know, just shy of being a fourth right there, you know? Because they have a really small index right there of, which is about 4% of the other, you know, critical minerals. Or I should say, other minerals, and you have your other non-critical minerals, right? And then you can see this little scan sheet. If I guess they send you somewhere if you want to get some additional information about mineral resources. So I guess if you screenshot and then screenshot again, you could probably check that out. Why did I show y'all that? Just one last piece. Because if you remember earlier, I told y'all they had something on there about being able to get access to critical minerals. And they said either domestically getting it from themselves or getting it from their allies. Now, who is an ally? That's right there. Hold on, watch out. Right, this one right here. Ensuring America's defense supply chain, ensuring domestic acquisition of critical minerals. That was July 20th. Now, we saw that devastation happen on July 15th. Let me just go ahead and pull that piece right back on up so y'all can see that. Right? All this up in here. Where's the word I was looking for? I'm trying to look at it from an angle, y'all. Okay. So right in here, but also the critical minerals and components necessary to manufacture, maintain, sustain, and repair that equipment are sourced domestically or from allied nations. Those look like some receipts to me. Those look like some receipts. You decide what you do with those receipts. You decide how you're going to index them. But receipts nevertheless. Receipts. Those are receipts. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. There seems to be a lot of pieces moving on the table. That's all that I'm saying at this current moment. Right? Had me feeling like Barbie when I saw this stuff come in earlier. Okay, I'm being a little facetious. Let me stop. But you know, like, I was just disappointed. And shout out to PBS, you know what I mean? I'm curious what y'all think, and I would love for y'all to put it in the chat because I am currently mapping and thinking and tracking. And if you are seeing what's happening, you know, and maybe you mapping something different, maybe you got some different receipts and we can share. Come on, let's info dump together. Let us share together. We are all in this together. If you like this content, definitely like, comment, subscribe, you know, share, do all things I know that you guys tend to do on this channel anyway. I'm just so excited to be here with y'all, sharing these receipts. I'm gonna be staying tuned because I'm pretty certain we're gonna get some type of clipping about what was said while the executive visited Michigan and talked to the big three. And I'm curious to see what they say, and I'll give y'all an update on that as well. But yeah, we all into these receipts. We are all into these receipts. This is Legally Everywhere with Child. We legally everywhere looking into everything. Hopefully you enjoyed this live. Hopefully you are having fun on this channel. I've been trying to do mobile lives where I can come and just talk to y'all and vibe and because y'all are my people. And I believe sharing is caring. When you're in a position to be able to make a move, make some decisions that affect you, your community, maybe some other communities, just do your best to be informed. It's about that time that we engage, that we take action, whatever that action may be, right? For some people, it's going to be writing letters. For some people, it's going to be, hey, I never voted and I'm going to vote this time. I'll get other people to come out and vote, whether it is I want to run for a position, I feel comfortable to do so. Maybe, you're just sharing videos like this so that you can help other people be more informed. Maybe you're looking for other content. Maybe you're doing some free online trainings or something like that. Whatever works for you, whatever floats your boat, let that sucker ride. You hear me? But whatever you do, be informed, take care of yourself. Self-care is super important. Being informed is super important. There are civic duties that come with certain things. And I just ask that, do your best. Whatever you do in this world, just do your best. This is Legally Everywhere with Child. We're looking into everything. And I'll see you in I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you all for being in the chat. Thanks for talking to me. Next time, y'all. Hopefully y'all like the new setup. Hey.